Nintendo has finally decided it's time to cave in. They've heard your complaints, they've heard your cries, and they said, you know what? Let's give the people what they want. A wristlet keychain for the Nintendo Switch 2 for only 600 platinum points. That's right, on the official My Nintendo page for the United States of America or North America, you can now go ahead and get your very own wristlet keychain. So don't worry about the pre-order, don't worry about the overall price of the games, don't worry about the price of the console. This is what we knew that you wanted this, and they finally threw it out there for us to purchase on our own. Welcome to Uncle's Channel, and welcome to another episode of Switch 2 News Roundup. And obviously, Nintendo is not giving in to any complaints or any cries out there. If anything, Nintendo had yet another negative day as far as news press affecting the Switch 2. And we're also going to discuss a ridiculous article that is going to argue that Nintendo Switch 2 has the best lineup of any system or any Nintendo system to date. But let's go ahead and kick things off by talking about the Nintendo GameCube controller, which when you pre-order your Switch 2 online, whenever that finally does happen, you're going to have the opportunity to also pre-order a GameCube controller for play on the Switch 2. However, Nintendo has officially announced that the GameCube controller is only functional with the actual GameCube app on the Switch 2. So you can obviously play those 3 launch games they have on there. If you want to play like Smash Ultimate or any of your other racing games or Mario Kart World or any of your shooter games, forget that. You can only play it on the actual GameCube app. And so that obviously has a lot of people upset because people say that the GameCube controller is the pinnacle of all game controllers, Nintendo or not. I don't necessarily feel that way, but there's a huge fan base for it. Just look into the Smash community. However, Nintendo also said this exact same thing when the N64 controller came out, the SNES controller, the Sega Genesis controller, and the NES controller. And so all of those controllers, yes, they work on those individual apps, but they also work if you simply go into the programming in the game or programming in the system, where you map out your controls, then you could actually use those controllers on a vast number of games on the first Switch. And so I feel like Nintendo is just sort of hedging their bets here and saying that the GameCube controller is not going to work on any other game, just like they said the other controllers would not, because they don't want to basically guarantee functionality and then have to backtrack on that or have people complain about it. So they're simply saying out the gate, it's not going to work on anything except the official GameCube app. But I feel like we are pretty wise to what Nintendo says on this. And if they said that on all the other controllers and they didn't mean it, they probably don't mean it on the GameCube either. So I would say you probably will get to use it on Smash Ultimate. But once again, we can't say for sure, but I'd say like 99% sure on that. Nintendo also upset a lot of fans today by saying that the Zelda 2 Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition is not going to include the DLC for the game that came out like 6 years ago. And this is upsetting a lot of people because they say like any other company, if they re-release a game like an HD version of it or like an Ultimate Edition or a new edition for a separate console, they always include like everything that was included in that original game plus the DLCs to give you like the ultimate package. And there's almost no example, if you go back in the past, of any other company that releases a game or re-releases a game that they didn't include all of the extra features that were given over the years to make an Ultimate Edition. Especially if you're charging like an extra $20 for it, you would expect to have that extra content available inside the Switch 2 edition. But Nintendo wants that extra $10 from you or however much the DLC costs. And so even if you buy straight out the gate the Switch 2 edition, you will not get the DLC for the original Breath of the Wild. And I know like it doesn't say it's guaranteed on there. I mean, we were all just sort of speculating it because that's what most companies do. And to not give players that is just one extra, nickel and diming that Nintendo is doing on its players out there. And there is quite the outcry on the no DLC on the Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild. And I also want to talk about the pre-order situation in the United States of America because I feel like the pre-order date is going to be coming up sooner than later because the Trump administration has agreed to a 90-day halt on the tariffs that were going to be affecting Vietnam. And that's where we get the Switch consoles we produced at. There was a 46% tariff put on Vietnam. And now that tariff, as well as all the other tariffs, have been halted for 9 days, except for China. And that tariff has actually been increased. And that 90 days will get us all the way through the Switch launch window. And so I feel like they're going to probably go ahead and push to get that original price back out to us and back into effect here and get those pre-orders taken care of. As far as like actual negotiations with Vietnam and all of that, that's not yet come through, and so who knows what's going to happen after that 90 days. We'll see for the future prices, but I think Nintendo is not going to want to backtrack too much, especially if they can get that initial launch out or that initial first run out of the system on that price. And let's go ahead and wrap things up here by talking about the Nintendo Life article that poses the question, does Switch 2 have Nintendo's best launch lineup ever? And my answer, straight out the gate, no, it certainly does not. But they make the argument for it here. They go through, they talk about how there are 21 separate launch games, 24 if you include the GameCube Switch Online library games. I don't include those, so we're just simply going to go with 21 here. And they go through here and they talk about how you're going to be able to see Cyberpunk 2077, The Path of the Goddess, Split Fiction to show like what the Switch can actually do as far as like power-wise goes. They talk about how you're going to get an improved version of the Zelda games with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. They talk about how we're going to get Mario Kart World, Fast Fusion, Deltarune, the Welcome Tour, Survival Kids, and they said on here specifically, the cup runneth over indeed. And no, I do not agree with that at all. The cup does not runneth over here, because if you take a look at the 21 games that are coming out on the Switch on release day, only 5 of the 21 are first-time releases on the Switch. So unless you like lived under a rock and didn't have a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 or an Xbox or a PC, you've most likely experienced or had the opportunity to experience all but 5 of these games before. Now, of those 5, only 4 of them are Switch 2 exclusives. So really only 4 games here are what I would consider true launch titles for just the Switch 2. And one of those is going to be the Welcome Tour that should have been a pack-in game to begin with, a $10 game. So now we're really down to just simply 3 games: Mario Kart, Fast Fusion, and Survival Kids. So 2 racing games and 1 game that should have run on the original Switch with no problems, and they might end up porting it over at some point. And so, I don't know, to say that this is the best Nintendo launch lineup ever, I feel like is a massive disservice to some of the all-time great consoles. I mean, like the SNES, it had F-Zero, it had Mario Kart World, N64. I know it was lacking on it, but it did have Super Mario 64, Pilot Wing 64. I know GameCube came out of the gates with Luigi's Mansion, Rogue Squadron. I believe Wave Race was a launch title as well. I mean, all these other systems out there from Nintendo had amazing launch lineups, or at least a very strong one in hindsight. I mean, right here, in all honesty, we're looking at one of these games being a great game, and that's going to be Mario Kart World. And so really, is it the best launch lineup ever? Absolutely not. Is it a fine launch lineup? It's okay. I mean, you're possibly getting one of Nintendo's all-time greats if it's as good as they say it's going to be, but I feel like it is just shooting over the moon to say the cup runneth over on the Switch 2 lineup here, when really only 1 game is going to probably become an all-time Nintendo classic. But that's all our news for today. Do you feel like Nintendo is finally sort of heading in the right direction here? Do you feel like they're still going down the bad press route? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.